Okay, guys, so today's video is going to focus on just some little things about macros that you should probably know ahead of time before you get started. So it's just easier for you and you're not racking your brain trying to figure out certain things. So the first thing I want to talk about is what the point of macros really is. And that is either to strategically lose fat, maintain weight, or gain muscle or bulk by eating in a calorie surplus, but to do it with flexibility in your food choices, right? So it's not meant to be this restrictive, all encompassing diet. It's meant to teach you how to balance food and then teach you what is needed to eat in a sustainable way for your lifestyle and for your goals. So, with that said, the first thing you need to know is that you don't have to be so super strict with your macros, in that you don't need to be so obsessed about tracking it to the perfect gram, down to the last gram, right? So, macro counting is literally nicknamed flexible dieting, although we can probably take out the dieting part because it's just really flexible eating, right? So, if you're desperately focusing on hitting every macro down to the gram every day and it's consuming your mind, then you've missed the point. Okay, that kind of lifestyle is no different than being on a really restrictive diet that makes you want to give up after a really short time. So I don't expect my clients to hit their macros perfectly on the money each and every day, but I do encourage them to stay within a range. And the best way that I've heard macros explained is like a budget with your money. So you set aside a rounded amount of money for things that you need and things that you want. Okay, so you don't typically set a budget by saying, I have, $27.32 to spend on dinner tonight. You would say, okay, I'm going to set aside about 30 bucks, 20 to 30 bucks to spend out going out to eat, right? So you kind of round it out. You don't focus on the cents just the same way you don't, focus so hard on getting that last gram, right? Because it's almost impossible to make every single one match. You'd probably have to eat the same thing every day to match your macro numbers perfectly. So it's the same with macros. Instead of saying I have to hit 127 grams of protein, like my numbers say, you would say I need to get somewhere between 115 to 130. Okay. So leave yourself some wiggle room. It's not that big of a deal. Okay. Your overall goal should really be hit your calorie goal and get close to your protein, maybe plus or minus 20 grams. And then you can really let fats and carbs fall wherever they may. They're really interchangeable. So, point being, you're doing macros for the flexibility. Okay. If you're being way too strict with hitting the numbers, it's going to drive you bonkers. Okay. So, again, it's really difficult to hit every number perfectly every time. I've only done that maybe once the entire time that I've counted macros. Okay, so give yourself a range to stay within and stop being so strict with that set number, or it will cause you to want to give up, okay, because it's too difficult. And that's not what we're going for. We're going for sustainability and something that you can do for as long as you need to in order to get to your goal, whatever it may be. Okay, number two, I want you to focus on quality food as much as possible. So I know that macros is all about flexibility, and that is 100% true. I encourage my clients to fit in foods that they love where they can, but I also encourage them to fuel up on quality, nutrient dense foods. So I probably don't need to explain why you need to eat healthy, but obviously it's important. If you want your body to feel good and to thrive, you've got to eat nutritious foods, okay? Fresh veggies, fruits, whole grains, lean proteins, all those good things. You can lose weight while still eating crap food, okay? 100% yes, if you are in a calorie deficit and you're eating less than the energy you're putting out, yes, you can still lose weight even when you're eating unhealthy. However, I don't need to tell you that you will likely feel like garbage, right? And you'll probably get that skinny fat look that it's not good, right? The last thing I want my clients to do is just want to get skinny, right? I want them to want to feel healthy and want them to want to build muscle and be strong, right? But your muscles are not going to grow if you're not giving it nutrient dense food, okay? If you're eating crap all the time, you're going to feel sluggish, tired, fatigued. You won't be able to lift heavy in the gym. You won't build up endurance, okay? When you eat bad food, or foods that are less nutritious, I'm not going to say bad because I teach my clients don't say bad or good. But when you eat foods that are less nutrient dense, then you're usually eating really calorie dense food, right? So you're getting less food, but more calories rather than eating a lot of nutritious foods. And you're getting full, you're getting a lot of volume, but less calories, okay? So it's likely that you're going to feel hungry all the time if you're eating like that versus when you eat a heaping portion of healthier food, you're more satiated, your skin looks better, you have more energy, you can lift heavy, you can build endurance, all those good things. There are too many benefits to eating nutrient-dense foods to name, right? To name in this one video. So as a general rule, I ask that my clients focus on quality foods 80% of the time, okay? Make that your goal. And then leave 20% for those fun foods that you like. Pizza, cake, cinnamon rolls, whatever it is. Leave a little bit of room for those things so you don't feel so restricted, okay? Whatever makes you happy and satisfied, use that 20% for those kinds of foods. So bottom line, save room for treats if it benefits you, but make the majority of your food intake nutritious to reap all the benefits from it. All right, now number 3, watch out for the little things, okay? I'm talking things like every little bite you take, maybe of your kid's leftover meal, every little lick, all your supplements, all those things count, whether you want to count it or not in your MyFitnessPal app, right? So, and this is where a lot of clients tend to mess up, right? So their calories, they're not tracking because they think it's not significant. And then they wonder why they're having an off week on the scale, or maybe the scale hasn't budged, right? So it's typically because there's something hidden that wasn't tracked, but nevertheless, it went in your body. So your body is tracking it, right? So things like supplements, little bites here and there as you cook, licking the peanut butter off of a spoon when you make your kids' sandwich. I'm guilty of that. But whether or not you think it's insignificant, it still goes in your body, so it still counts as calories, right? Now, again, macros is a flexible dieting style. So if you're not in a cut and you're just maintaining or you're bulking, I would say don't worry about it as much. But if you are cutting and you have a very specific goal of weight loss that you're trying to reach, then you just got to tighten things up a little bit, right? You got to be careful with what you're putting in your mouth and not tracking. I'm not saying don't lick the peanut butter off of the spoon, okay? I'm just saying that those calories are going into your body regardless of if you decide to track it or not. Those supplements, those handful of supplements you take have a calorie value typically, okay? So you take a handful of supplements every day, go ahead and add that as like a saved meal in your MyFitnessPal app. That way you can just quickly add it in each day. There's there's shortcuts in MyFitnessPal app. So if you have a meal that you eat regularly, you can save it as a meal and then you can just swipe or click. It's really simple. So if there's things that you're doing each day that maybe seem minuscule, like 50 calories, but nevertheless you eat it every day, go ahead and just add it in, track it. Okay. So just watch those little things there, because that's sometimes where people fail to stay on track, is those little things that sneak in that they just don't want to track. Okay. All right. Number 4, your macros equals your total calorie intake. And I hope after the course, you've already figured that out, right? But some people, it just doesn't click. And that's fine. So what I want to say is either hit your macros to reach your calorie goal because they equal the same, or hit your calorie goal and your protein, and then let fats and carbs fall into place wherever they do. Okay. So one thing that it doesn't click for people is that because their macros have a calorie value, it equals up to your total calorie intake, right? So you've already figured this out, or you've already watched the video, but 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories, 1 gram of carbs equals 4 calories, 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. Okay. So once you set your macros, those macros are going to add up to one big calorie total, right? That number is your total calorie intake. So basically, if you hit your macro numbers, you're also hitting your total calorie intake number. So some people get confused, like, do I focus more on the calorie intake or do I focus just on the macros? But really, they're one and the same, okay? If you hit your macros, you're going to hit your calorie goal, right? If you hit your calorie goal and protein intake, then the carbs and fats are going to fall into place as long as you're staying in that calorie range, right? So for instance, let's say your macros for protein are 125 grams. If you multiply that times 4, it gets to 500 calories. Your carb intake is 160 grams. Multiply that times 4. That's 640 calories. And then your fats, your fat macros are 50 grams. You multiply that times 9, and that's 450 calories. So all those equal up to 1,590 calories. So all your macros put together equal your calorie intake, okay? So again, you can track 2 ways. You can either get really close to all 3 of your macro goals, or, and what I tend to focus on and tell my clients to focus on, is that total calorie intake and then your protein intake, okay? And then fats and carbs kind of just fall into place depending on how you feel for the day. You know, some people may need higher carbs, some people may need higher fats, and that's something that you kind of have to figure out for yourself based on your biofeedback. What does your body enjoy more? Does it want more fats? Does it want more carbs? Also, you can think of it as like if you're doing a weightlifting session, you're going to want more carbs to fuel the muscles. Okay. So things like that. But your main goal is to hit your total calorie intake and then your protein intake. Okay. 2 more things. Number 5, accuracy matters, especially if you're a beginner or you're in a cut. So what I want you to remember is that there is a difference between raw foods and cooked foods. And this is a place where sometimes clients get stuck and they ask me, which one do I use? Really, you can use either one because in MyFitnessPal, you can look up cooked chicken versus chicken, raw chicken. But I would say whatever way you choose, just stay consistent. Okay. But I tend to measure out raw food versus cooked food. Okay. And here's why it's a mistake if you weigh cooked food and then you track it as raw. So when you cook a hamburger patty, it shrinks, right? So if you weigh it after it's cooked, it might say you're only taking in 3.5 ounces when really it was about 4.5 ounces, okay? When it was raw. So when you cook it, the moisture gets cooked out, right? And you're just basically losing water, which has no calorie value. But the overall calories for the burger still remains. So you want to make sure to just go ahead and weigh your meats and even some of your veggies raw. I do think, there's an option to search for cooked foods in MyFitnessPal app, but just to avoid it maybe not being there after you've already cooked it and you're just searching for, cooked chicken or cooked burger, I would say just go ahead and weigh it raw. Like when I'm doing like frozen turkey burgers, that already has a calorie value. You can just scan the box and say 1 patty and that'll take care of it for you. But if you're making like homemade burgers, you want to do it raw, not cooked. And it's just easier that way. So if you are constantly messing that up and you're eating, you're tracking it as raw, but you're eating the wrong amount of weight. If you're eating a 4-ounce chicken and you weigh it or you track it as 3.5 ounces or 3 ounces, you could be getting like 100 calories more than what you're tracking. Okay. You may be consuming 100 calories more. And if you do that every day, that's going to add up over time. Okay. So it's just little things like that. Just make sure that you're consistent in how you're weighing and how you're tracking it into MyFitnessPal. Okay. All right. And the last thing is, I really want you to listen to this one. Macro counting is a tool. Okay. I really want you to get this in your mind. Macros and counting them is just a tool that teaches you what your body needs to consume to either lose, maintain, or gain weight. Over time, you will start to learn what portion sizes you need, what a balanced, nutritious plate looks like, all those things. Okay. So it's going to teach you what to look for. You can go to restaurants and look at the chicken that they place on your plate and think that's about 4 ounces, right? It's just a tool to help you eventually eat intuitively. Without tracking, you don't get a solid idea of what your portion sizes should be, right? What they should look like based on what your goal is. Also, just like a tool, it can be used for harm, okay? And this goes back to what I first talked about. If you are becoming obsessed with tracking to the gram every day and every meal, you need to take a step back, okay? I did it when I first started counting macros because I was nervous about going over and messing up everything. But the thing is, it's not all about losing fat, okay? It's not what it should be. We need to learn how to eat, what to eat, how much to eat. Our habits of biting and licking and tasting everything we cook or every time we cook, it's bringing about an awareness, okay? So it's just a tool that makes us aware of our habits, our portion sizes, and the balance between nutrients, okay? So use the tool to improve yourself, not to condemn yourself and make it just another restrictive diet, because that is not the purpose. All right, guys. So this entire segment was just to give you some tips as you begin to count macros, just some things that I see in clients that sometimes get them stuck, or they might not realize from the beginning. And it's also things that I've done as well. It's not going to be perfect your first or even second week, okay? You're going to make mistakes. I know the first maybe a month and a half, I was trying to do recipes and I did it completely wrong. Like the serving sizes, I just didn't know what I was doing. So it took a lot of trial and error. I never had a macro coach, but I just kept learning. I kept going because it was important to me to learn how to eat right and to learn about portion sizes. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to mess up. Don't get discouraged when you mess up, because it's just a learning process, okay? Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's content, there is much more like this and on other topics on my podcast. It's Bridges2Barbells Radio, wherever you listen to podcasts. So head over there and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any information on diet, nutrition, exercise, mindset, and faith. Bye for now.